One of the things I like to do on Mondays, because there's so many feelings going around, and I would take great pride in having any feelings whatsoever, particularly when it comes to football and football games, because to me, it's just pure science. So when people are over their skis, they're not making sense, they're overly emotional, I think it's a time to bring in some reality, void of any emotion whatsoever. So I like to call this overreactions versus reality. Overreaction. I hear this in my own family. Heard it a lot going into the game. So sure enough, after the game, it was a full-on wildfire. Here it is. Overreaction. The NFL and its officials. That's in-game officials and league officials. In fact, it's probably anybody and everybody associated with the NFL is making sure the Kansas City Chiefs win again. The NFL wanted the Chiefs to beat the Texans, and the game was fixed as usual. None other than Skip Bayless went here. Wait, what, Jeff? Yeah, this guy gets weirder. His close-ups, has anybody seen this stuff? It's about an inch from his face when he does videos. He gets weirder by the day. So just to point out the overreaction, I'm sorry, it's an overreaction. I think it's a ridiculous overreaction. Just to point out how crazy things have been getting, I give you weird and getting weirder Skip Bayless. Ball game, period. Congrats, NFL. You made sure Mahomes survived. The Swifties will be back in full force for the AFC Championship game. You gave Mahomes the referee support he needed. By the way, that's in all caps, and it was liked 53,000 times. Yeah. Okay. Reality. Yes. Okay, I'll play along for just a second. I'm going to play along for just a second. But the reality is, yes, there's far more interest in Taylor Swift and the Chiefs. Yes, every level, just about everybody. I'm not saying most people want the Chiefs to win. In fact, if you did one of those, one of those diagrams around the country, I think most people would prefer the Chiefs would lose. But interest compared to the Texans is off the charts. There she was. I know, because this is all the female in my house knows. Is she on yet? Where is she? Where is she? Where is she? She, Taylor Swift, was hanging out with Caitlin Clark. Yes. Anyone in the media business would prefer the Chiefs over the Texans. Bigger numbers in every way. But to say that the fix was in is getting dumber every time they win. And it seems to be escalating every single time they win. So was there a fix that was in? But Jeff, you saw the calls. You heard Aikman talking about some of the calls. You heard people complaining about the calls. Jeff, it's fixed, man. Shut up. The reality is the Texans had their chances. Okay? Oh, I'm not denying there were a couple goofy calls. The Texans had their chances. They lost easily, count them up, 7 points in special teams. Special teams mistakes alone. Easily 7, probably more, but I'll leave it at 7 that I can count right off the top of my head in special teams mistakes. The difference between the Chiefs and the Texans is clear. In fact, the difference between the Chiefs and the Texans is sort of summarized by, the first 14 seconds of the game. That's when the Texans, to start the game, gave up a 63-yard kickoff return. And Chris Boyd, who's a player on the kickoff team, is a defensive back for the Texans, it's an understatement to say he went crazy, because he went crazy. We're 14 seconds into the game. He chunks his helmet about 25 yards. He starts the game with an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty and then shoved the special teams coach like he was going to knock him into the lower deck of the stadium. It's the first 14 seconds of the game. I bring this up because you know what the Chiefs don't do? They don't do stupid, psychotic stuff like that. The Texans, just to take it further, the Texans gave up 4 sacks in the final quarter. They give up 5 for the game. They give up 4 in the final quarter again. All right? I mean, you could say give them props for hanging around. They were playing better than they usually do. They played probably some of the best football outside of stupid things, really stupid things they've done. They played the run of play is what I would say. The run of play for the Texans was better than it has been. There's stuff to like there. C.J. Stroud was playing better. But you can't give up 4 sacks and think you're going to win on the road. You can't. And no, it's not fixed. It's not. Stop it. The Texans made the mistakes that cost them a game. The Chiefs didn't necessarily beat them. The Texans made enough mistakes to cost them the game. And that had nothing to do. It's not an official's fault that you start the game with a 63-yard kickoff return and the guy that makes the tackle on the play goes absolutely psychotic. Here's what the Chiefs do. Here's the present day version of the Chiefs. You know what they do? They keep a game close and they let their opponent lose the game. Think about that. They avoid mistakes and their opponent makes enough to lose the game. The Chiefs let their opponent lose the game. And the Texans did it. They win terms hidden yards. They turn them into points. It's, you get lost in the stats and the nerdiness stuff, but what they do is they play good enough, long enough to let you lose the game. I watched that guy get the 15-yard penalty to start the game. It reminded me, I had a teammate in college, the first kickoff of the opening game of the season, he got ejected on the kickoff return that went into the end zone. There was no blocking. And on the video, right, so you see we're watching the game video, special teams video. The ball is kicked off. He's one of the frontline guys gonna block. He drops a couple steps you're supposed to do. Then picks out his guy to block him. He doesn't just block him and pin him down. He then proceeds to punch him repeatedly in the face while he's on the ground. It's the opening kickoff of the season. And he got kicked out of the game, the first kick. The Texans lost the game. Most of the time this season, the Chiefs don't win it. Their opponent loses it. The Texans did it. Stop. The reality is the Texans lost. It wasn't fixed. Overreaction. Travis Kelce is fat, and he's done at 35. No. Okay. Reality. One, he's no longer fat. He was fat in September. He was fat a little bit of October, but he's not fat now because he's got this whole football thing figured out. He's got it figured out really well, and that is, I'll see you in January. I'll be fit in January. Don't worry, I'll be fine in January. It is pretty remarkable. So the reality is that Travis Kelce is, he's the worst dressed man you'll ever see. He dresses like, we can have some comparisons here. I compare Travis Kelce's outfits. Okay, that's what they are. He dresses like MC Hammer in the mid-90s. But the Texans, for the most part, did a good job on some stuff. They shut down the Chiefs' passing game for the most part. But the guy that dresses like MC Hammer, the guy that used to be fat, was the most dangerous player on the field. He's the best player on the field. Again, he had 66% by himself. He had 66% of the Chiefs' passing yards. He had a ridiculous. Every year it feels like I say the same thing. When he has one of these games again, then again and again, you say, man, that guy was ridiculous. Well, he was ridiculous again. He had 7 catches for 117 yards. And even more ridiculous, because he's no longer fat, he had 62 yards after the catch, and at one point made guys in the secondary, those are pretty good secondary players for the Texans, he made them miss like they were children again. He looked like he was 25.
Hey Austin, Jeff Ward here, and I never thought I'd be in an accident and need a personal injury attorney. And then sure enough, less than a mile from my house, I was blindsided. I was injured. My world was turned completely upside down. I called DJC Law and their team took care of everything. I got the best result possible. Don't just take my word for it. They have over 1,000 five-star reviews. So if you're injured, call 512-888-9999 and get your justice at teamjustice.com.